I've been talking about post-purchase retargeting for years now, and still I see very, very few ad accounts actually implementing post-purchase retargeting, which just blows my mind because it's literally the easiest money you can make. It's literally like people think abandoned cart retargeting is the easiest you can make. That's still somebody who hasn't bought from you, right? You work so hard as a marketer or a business owner to convince that person to stop in their Facebook feed, pay attention to your ad, click the ad, go through the steps to buy a product, take their credit card out, input their credit card information, and trust you and click buy. It takes so much work for that to happen, especially nowadays. Once they're in there, now it's easy time to make money, right? The repeat purchase rate is or just the conversion rate on a customer versus a prospect significantly higher. What I think a lot of people assume, and this is also a dangerous assumption, is that once I've sold them like one time, they're an Apple fanboy, right? They're gonna line up and buy my crap, whatever, and I'm guilty of it. Apple puts out anything I buy, right? I've spent tens of thousands of dollars with Apple over the years. But the truth is, it doesn't happen on the first purchase, right? The repeat purchase rate for a first time customer is about 30%, sometimes less than that. So that means for every 100 customers you're getting, less than 30 of them are actually coming back and buying. It jumps up to almost 70% once they buy a second time. So your work's not really done until you get the second purchase. The second purchase, in my opinion, way more important than the first purchase. And there's just so much stuff you can do: cross-selling, upselling. You can move from a straight sell to a continuity. There's a lot of things you can do with existing first-time buyers to get them to be second-time customers, and then move them deeper into your ecosystem, right?
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey guys, it's Joe Troyer from Digital Triggers and Show Me the Nuggets. And today we got none other than Maxwell Finn with us in the house. So I'm super excited to bring Maxwell on this podcast. A couple of weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago now, I met Maxwell at an event, and the things that he was talking about with Facebook, and specifically the things he was talking about with retargeting, just blew my mind. You guys know that we go super deep with retargeting, and we take it to the next level. I'm super excited to have Maxwell on, really talking about some crazy campaigns that he runs with retargeting. For those of you guys that don't know Maxwell runs a training company completely focused on online paid traffic called Unicorn Innovations. He's also the co-founder of Quantum Media and also Startup Drug. So without further ado, Maxwell, welcome to the podcast, man.
What's up, Joe? It's good to be here. And just a quick, so we sold Startup Drugs recently, and Quantum Media, we also exited that. So it's Unicorn, full steam ahead.
All right, awesome. So 100% focused these days on Unicorn, which is all about training and paid traffic, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, so we do training. We also have a consulting side of the business, and then we also build our own assets internally. So we have Unicorn Politics, Unicorn Wealth. So we have internal properties that are kind of hybrid content, community, commerce plays. So kind of three parts of the business.
Yeah. So I think at the event we talked about some crazy things that you were doing with like the election market and also the investing market, stuff that you were talking about with ClickFunnels. And I know obviously you're a 2 Comma Club awardee, as we can see in the background there. And I know that you've been in a lot of different verticals. But before we kind of dive into today's interview, can you give us a little bit of a catch up? The 2-minute here's my story, if you will, that we got to ask to set the stage.
Yeah, of course. So quick story, grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My grandpa was a real estate developer, came up with the idea of a planned community, built most of the townhomes in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, sold that company. And I'm going to put my little Yorkie down because she likes to get up here when I do lives, but she gets a little in the way sometimes. So my dad then kind of grew a commercial real estate company called NAI Global, basically the largest private commercial real estate company in the world. Sold it in 2012 with about 375 offices in 55 countries, about 5,000 brokers. I knew I didn't want to do real estate, but was interested in the marketing component of it. Started teaching a little bit of marketing in 2007, 2008 to commercial real estate brokers, back when it was kind of Web 2.0 and SEO was really the sexy terms in the early days of social media. And started my first company in college called the Daily 100. We raised, venture capital funding, millions of dollars venture capital funding. We built a mobile platform that connected brands with long tail influencers. We were kind of ahead of the curve with mobile. We were mobile first before that became a thing. We were focused on long tail influencers before that was a thing. We had native advertising before that was really a thing. Grew to about 500,000 users, made a lot of mistakes, but learned a lot of things. At the end of that, started my first e-commerce store, Startup Drugs, which we just sold recently, which is my first foray into like Facebook advertising, e-com, print on demand, that whole world. I thought it was fascinating to me coming from years of running a venture-backed company where you're just told, growth, 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 features, features, features. Don't care about, revenue or business models. We'll figure that out. That this is now a business where like, hey, I can make money today and I don't have to touch anything and I don't need any capital. It was pretty revolutionary for me at the time. Grew that, met my partner, Jeremy Adams, my business partner, Jeremy Adams, and we had a third partner at the time. We started a little thing on the side. He had met Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. We found Kevin like, hey, he was doing a lot of amazing things, obviously, but he didn't have a big online presence for how big of a name he was. So he said, hey, let us help you out with your online presence. No charge. We'll just do it. And he said yes, because most of those big guys, people think they don't need things. They do need things. And eventually he said, why don't we just start a company together, right? You're doing so many great services. People ask me for digital all the time. Let's just start an agency. That was Quantum. Grew that. We had multiple offices. We had a big team. We had dozens of clients. And things went really well, worked with big companies. We kind of got to the end and we just had a differing viewpoints in goals, right? Where Kevin's at in his career is very different than where Jeremy and I are at in our careers. So yeah, we started Unicorn about 2 years ago. And it's been a wild ride. So Unicorn, we have our info business where we do trainings, courses, all that good stuff. We have a consulting business where we actually run traffic, but it's much more premium, higher end. And then we have the kind of side of our business where we're building assets, investing in stuff, acquiring companies. And so that's 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes of my life in the last decade on the business side of things.
Awesome, man. Thank you for that. So in Quantum, when you're talking about higher end clients, if we got some of those listening to the podcast and are interested in working with you, Max, like what's that start at?
Sure. So Quantum, we have to work with big companies because of Kevin. So we have to work with companies like 3M and massive Fortune 500s. But the mistake we made there, in my opinion, and we don't have to go down this rabbit hole of the perfect agency model because that's a long conversation. I think a lot of agencies they're a race to the bottom. They're trying to offer a lot of services and they're trying to compete on price instead of like being very, very focused and being the best at something. And not being a premium option, just charging the lower end of the spectrum and taking on any client. Those are the worst clients. They have the most unrealistic expectations. They're the least patient. They have more free time. They're in the ad account every day looking at things. They're bugging you. There's a lot of work for what they pay you. So with Unicorn, we decided like we're only going to start at a certain number. If it's not there, it's not worth it. And so for us, like to get involved in any project, we need to be making at least 10,000 a month guaranteed at a minimum. And again, that doesn't have to be like straight percent of ad spend. That can be a rev share. There could be a lot of deal structures to do there. But for us, we found that that's kind of the sweet spot. And anything below that, it's not a good fit. Anything above that, you're getting clients that they know what they're doing. They have their stuff figured out. The chance of success is a lot higher. The retention rate's a lot higher. So that's kind of the number for us.
So it sounds like these days you're all about building a specialist agency. If an agency owner is asking for advice, they're just getting started, what would you tell them?
So what I would tell a new agency owner is specialize. That's important. But more importantly, diversify. So again, this is my opinion, right? So there's people out there running. I have friends that run very large agencies and make a ton of money. I think going all in on an agency without any diversification. When I say diversification, I'm talking about like doubling down and building some of your own stuff. Like if you have skills and you can grow e-com businesses or you can grow local businesses, whatever it might be, like grow something on your own, right? Like grow your own business, build your own assets. Mainly because like a recession hits or something, paid traffic is one of the first things that gets hit, right? So company, all of a sudden recession hits, they're losing money. They're going to look at their expenses. They're going to see this 4 or 5, 10,000 a month expense, and they're going to pull the plug there. So, you have your own business, you have your own asset, your own store, whatever it might be. You're in control of that. So it mitigates some of your risk. It maximizes your upside. So yeah, I would say specialize, but I would also say, start building some of your own stuff. So, tinkering on the side, building side project. It's great for risk mitigation, maximizing upside, and also testing some of your skills and developing
Definitely.
skills.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that you should be the biggest advocate of your company, right? Like if you build a
Mhm.
process, like why wouldn't you be using it for yourself in every single way that you possibly can? And if it's so great and you're selling it to the world, like why wouldn't you use it?
Exactly.
So I love the phrase, you got to eat your own dog food. And I find that obviously most people these days really are.
That's very true. Yeah, I think you have. It's a lot easier to trying to figure the best way to say this without being offensive, and I end up saying something that might be
It's all
controversial
right.
or upsetting or offensive.
Just be
Um,
offensive. It's okay. No filter.
and by the way, I'm getting a little bit of feedback on your end. It might just be because of the mic or something like that. Just letting you know. So I think it's easy, right? So if you're not really good at what you do, you're kind of average. The easy path is to spend somebody else's money. So it's obviously doing something on your own, building your own store, building your own business. That's a much bigger risk. And if you're not really confident in your skills, you're not really confident in getting that high reward. And so I think that's why you see most people not going down that path, because it's a safer bet. But at the end of the day, like, I didn't decide to be an entrepreneur to have safety nets and security, right? That's kind of the deal you make when you become an entrepreneur, right? And I've never had a 9 to 5 job outside of, shitty jobs in high school and stuff. But like once I got to college, I never had a 9 to 5 job. So for the last 12 plus years, every paycheck, every bill it's been earned by me, right? No one else has any control over that. And that comes with a lot of fear and risk and uncertainty and stress and years where it's really terrible. But I'm confident when I do, and I know the upside's there, and it's begun to pay off a lot. But yeah, I think that's really something. That's an internal discussion. Like you need to understand, hey, am I doing this because I want to go all in and be an entrepreneur? I'm confident what I can do. I'm willing to take the risk for the reward. Or are you just trying to, make a little money on the side, kind of play it safe? In which case, you're kind of more like an employee than an entrepreneur.
When it comes to paid traffic, would you say Facebook's definitely your specialty, or are you playing with other things these days too?
So we definitely play with a lot of other things. I would say our specialty is acquiring customers, right? And when I say our specialty, I'm talking about our network, right? Nobody out there is the best at multiple things. It's hard enough to be the best or in the top few percent of one thing, let alone multiple things. So what you really do is build a network. You have to build relationships. You have to identify who are those top players and everything. And usually you're not going to be able to hire those people, right? The people that are the best are not going to come work for you. And so that's why we have a lot of partnerships. We have a lot of referral deals. We do some white label stuff because we know, hey, listen, you can come to us and we could hire people to do your job for you, but you're not going to get the best. So come to us and we'll bring the network in. We'll bring in all the right players. We'll bring in the best player here, the best player here. We'll bring them into our Slack community. We'll manage the project. Everything will be going through Unicorn, but you're going to get the best quality. It's going to be a premium, but you're going to get the best. So yeah, I mean, customer acquisition is really our specialty. For me personally, Facebook is kind of what I started with, and it's what I've kind of become more known for. But at the same time, the last year, I've really been taking a step back is the wrong word, I guess, like up in terms of looking at the actual big picture strategy. I think if you look at the success stories right now, brand wise, company wise, so the fastest growing companies that you see, none of them are there because of Facebook ads, right? They run Facebook ads, but it's because they just have brilliant products, they have brilliant offers, they have brilliant brands and messaging, and the whole brand is incredible. Every touch point's personalized, the packaging, the experience, all of that matters so much more nowadays than your manual bidding strategy on Facebook, right? And so we've tried to incorporate more of those elements into our training and into what we bring to our clients and to our students.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? So when you have a customer that comes in, or a prospective customer that comes in, Max, and they're like, "Here's my product," and you look at it and you're like, "Man, like this has got a lot of work. Packaging's all wrong. Customer experience is horrible. The customer value journey is, awful. It's non-existent." And you're coming in as the person to bring in customers. Do you just say no, or how do you deal with
Yeah,
that?
we just say no. And I think that's a short answer is we just say no. That's a really tough thing for business owners, especially younger business owners, or not by age, but just like experience wise, to do, is to say no. Because you work so hard to build something to get people to come to you and give you money, right? That's your whole thing. It's like, I'm building something, working really hard, so people come to me and they want to pay me for my services and my products. And it's not in our nature to fight against that, right? We want money, we want to grow. You don't want to say no. The way I look at it though is saying yes to the wrong deals can actually lose you money, right? And so it's about what's the true cost, what's the true opportunity in every deal you take. So sure, this company might be willing to pay you 5K today to take them on. Be willing to pay you 10K, right? Somebody come to us and say, hey, we're going to pay you, money's not an issue, we want to work with you, we're going to pay you $20,000 a month to work with us. But their product, I mean, everything be a mess, right? They could just have a lot of cash. It's going to require such a time investment to get it to where it needs to be. That time could be spent on a dozen other projects. It could be spent building our own business, our own asset, which maybe is not making us $20,000 today, but could make us a lot more money in the long run, right? A client, you're kind of capped in terms of your true earnings potential of that client. You know, building something you own, you have more uncapped gains and opportunity there.
So in most of the deals that you're doing today, is it mostly like joint venture and profit sharing type of deals, or more just straight up, here's my fee, monthly fee to get started?
We don't have a set model, and the reason we don't is because every business is different. Their needs are different. The industry they're in is different. You know, it's a lot easier if you're doing info product to do profit share deals than it is if you're selling a, you know, a high cost, low margin physical product, right? And what I would say is that we definitely try to structure deals where we're more partners than vendor vendee, right? Because if you're just a vendor to a business, every check they write, everything you do is they view as an expense, right? You're expendable. They can just cut you off at any moment. Obviously, you can have contracts and stuff, but we found that the contracts and agreements get voided very easily. And even if it's enforceable, right? It's like, let's say you have a 6-month contract with a client and they're paying you, you know, $5,000 a month. And 3 months in, they say, hey, we don't want to work with you anymore, right? So you have $15,000 left on the table. By the time you pay your lawyers, by the time you know, the back and forth and everything, you're going to walk away with nothing. You're going to be, you know, in the hole pretty much. So most people know that and they call that bluff, right? And so, yeah, I mean, most of the stuff we do now, it's partnership because again, it's when you're a partner with somebody, it's not as easy to just fire them, right? It's a different relationship, different dynamic. The upside's significantly higher for both parties, and it aligns your goals. I think that's the biggest thing, right? If you're a traditional agency where you charge just percent of ad spend, your goal is different than your client's goal, right? Their goal is they want to make money, they want to make profit, right? Your goal is to spend money. Your profit's tied to spending money, their profit's tied to how profitable that money is spent. And that can diverge as you begin to scale. The client might actually be making the same amount of money each month, even though the spend's going up because the costs go up. So the revenue's higher, but their profit's the same, but they're writing you as the agency a much bigger check every month. So they're actually losing money the more money they make revenue wise. And that's why I think a lot of agencies have short retention rates with clients.
So you look at, I'm sure, a boatload of Facebook accounts, Google Ads accounts, right? YouTube campaigns, all these paid traffic campaigns that other agencies or in-house marketers are running for businesses. What do
Yep.
you think are the kind of the big top 3, 4 mistakes that you see like just over and over again? Like the ones you're just like, seriously, like, why are we even having this conversation? Like the dead
Sure. I mean,
obvious.
it's a long list of mistakes, right? And let me also preface this by saying that I guarantee you, if in some other media buyers took over ad accounts we ran, they would find problems, right? So there's a difference between different ideas and differing opinions and strategies because everyone has different strategies, right? So I might look at somebody's ad account and not agree with their strategy. Doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong or bad. It might have worked for them. However, there are definitely things that are just flat out bad or wrong. One of the, and this is not, most people kind of laugh at this. I wouldn't say laugh, but like they just shrug this one off because it doesn't seem important, especially early on, but it's really, really important when you're growing and scaling and have a lot of people now working on the business is your naming conventions, right? So I see so many ad accounts where you'll hop in and you have no idea what anything stands for, right? Just random keywords like, sale, December, blue is the campaign. And the ad sets are, interests. Like, So, just as interest, right? And so me coming in, if I'm trying to review an ad account, and let's say the account spent hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, that can take a ton of time to review the info and get a quick feel, right? So we have a consistent naming convention we use for every single ad account that is very, very clear. It's very easy to understand. It's uniform. And once you tell people, hey, these are what the acronyms are, you can look at a campaign really quick and look at the ad sets and know, okay, this is what this is. This is a lookalike. This is a custom audience. This is the interest in here. This is the placement, the bid, and you can get that really quickly. So that's a big one, is just sloppy naming convention, sloppy organization. I think another big one is a lack of any type of post-purchase follow-up. I've been talking about post-purchase retargeting for years now, and still I see very, very few ad accounts actually implementing post-purchase retargeting, which just blows my mind because it's literally the easiest money you can make. It's literally like people think abandoned cart retargeting is the easiest you can make. That's still somebody who hasn't bought from you, right? You work so hard as a marketer or a business owner to convince that person to stop in their Facebook feed, pay attention to your ad, click the ad, go through the steps to buy a product, take their credit card out, input their credit card information, and trust you and click buy. It takes so much work for that to happen, especially nowadays. Once they're in there, now it's easy time to make money, right? The repeat purchase rate is or just the conversion rate on a customer versus a prospect, significantly higher. What I think a lot of people assume, and this is also a dangerous assumption, is that once I've sold them, like one time, they're an Apple fanboy, right? They're gonna line up and buy my crap, whatever, and I'm guilty of it. Apple puts out anything I buy, right? I've spent tens of thousands of dollars with Apple over the years. But the truth is, it doesn't happen on the first purchase, right? The repeat purchase rate for our first time customers about 30%, sometimes less than that. So that means for every 100 customers you're getting, less than 30 of them are actually coming back and buying. It jumps up to almost 70% once they buy a second time. So your work's not really done until you get the second purchase. The second purchase, in my opinion, way more important than the first purchase. And there's just so much stuff you can do: cross-selling, upselling. You can move from a straight sale to a continuity. There's a lot of things you can do with existing first-time buyers to get them to be second-time customers, and then move them deeper into your ecosystem, right? So that's one. And I think the third one, if I had to pick another really important one, would be just a lack of any type of consistent testing, right? So what I see a lot of people do is they throw up a few ad sets, a few different interests and lookalike here or there, and they throw a few ads in there, and they kind of turn things off that aren't working, and they just double down and double down and double down on the one or two things that are working. Meanwhile, they're not testing anything new. They're not trying any new creative, any new copy, any new audiences. And what always happens is that thing that was killing it stops working, right? That is, there's a guarantee in life, right? You're going to die, you're going to pay taxes, and your ads are going to stop working. That's just a fact, right? But consistently, I see it. Right? We had a client about 2 years ago now. It was 2 Black Fridays ago, who he was a farmer. He was a CPA for a family farm, took a course on drop shipping, and he was a miracle success story. He launched a store for STEM toys. So at the right place at the right time, hot market, 2 years ago especially. He launched it Q3, so right before Q4, perfect timing. He actually invested in building a beautiful store. The store looked awesome, and he had great products. He sold about $2.5 million worth of STEM toys in his first quarter in business. And he did it all with a single boosted post. He put up one page post with a copy and a slideshow of the product. No call to action, no headline. He spent about $850,000 on that boosted post. But during that time, he wasn't testing anything else. And what ended up happening is all of a sudden Q4 ended, results went to crap, and now he was losing money. And the money he had made during that season, he already allocated other places. He bought inventory, he distributed it, right? So now you're coming out of pocket to test, which is a lot more painful, right? It's a lot easier when you're making money to allocate a percent, right? It's like when I don't know this anymore, which sucks because it's tax season sucks. But like when you're a W-2 employee, your taxes come right out of your paycheck, right? And so you don't notice it, right? So taxes come out. When you're not taking the taxes out, like for self-employed people, and you got to pay at the end of the year quarterly, you're like, holy crap, I got to write a big check. But it's the same amount of money you'd pay if it was W-2'd, but you just weren't doing it, every 2 weeks. And so now it's just a large amount. It seems unreasonable. So, testing while you're generating profits instead of waiting for the thing that's generating profits is so important. I think one of my good friends and mentor, Ezra Firestone, he told me this like almost 4 years ago, that you should always be taking, I think he said like it's about 15 to 30% of your daily profits and reinvesting those into testing. And that can be testing new copy, new creative. It can be testing new platforms, right? Maybe you take, 30% of your profits every day and you put, 15% into testing new audiences and ads, but 15% into testing new channels. You try Pinterest, you try Twitter, you try, YouTube, you try native, right? Because you're inevitably going to find something else that works. And so now you have 2 winners instead of 1 winner. And now you can take more profits, test more things, you're going to find more winners, right? That's how you really achieve success, right? The last thing I'll say here is the Trump campaign in 2016. There's a few reasons why they won, right? And we can talk about Russian meddling and stuff like that, but I'm just talking purely from a marketing standpoint. They won the marketing. They just out tested by a massive margin the Clinton campaign. They tested, I have to pull up the exact metric, but it's like, let me pull this up. Trump campaign, Facebook testing versus Clinton. They spent like a similar amount of money, but the amount that he tested was absolutely insane. So let's see, I'm pulling this up right now. So even just like little things. Okay, so the Trump campaign spent 44 million on ads. The Clinton campaign spent 28 million. So he spent more money. 84% of Trump's budget went to actual direct response, asking people on Facebook to take action, donating, compared to Clinton's 56,000. This is the big one. So he ran 5.9 million variations of ads during the campaign. The Clinton campaign did 66,000. So think about that for a second. The Trump marketing team tested 5.9 million different ad formats and versions and variations. The Clinton campaign tested 66,000, right? It's insane, the difference there. And again, I'm not going to say that's the one reason why he won, but it definitely is a key reason, right? The person who tests the most, the person who's throwing the most stuff at the wall, is going to find more things that work than the person who's just, kind of half-assing it.
100%. Love that. So those are 3 big takeaways for sure.
Yep.
That's great. You talked a little bit about post-purchase retargeting. I'd love to dive into that a little bit more, Max. At the event that I saw you speak at, you were talking about that in great detail, and it just floored me. I know that I think you call this your triple threat retargeting method. Can you kind of break that down a little bit for us?
Sure. So, the triple threat retargeting method is something I talked about. This is going back a little ways. This is my first Facebook course. I still think it's highly applicable, but basically it looks at kind of pre-purchase and post-purchase, and breaks down into different buckets, right? And so we'll get away from that naming convention just because it has evolved since then. But what I think is really important when you talk about retargeting is understanding that people are at different points in their journey. So, talking about mistakes people make, we can add a fourth one that ties into this discussion, which is a lot of businesses treat all of their prospects the same, right? So the way they retarget is identical, whether you're a first-time page viewer or you visited the site 10 times, you've added 2 products to the cart, and you still haven't bought, right? Those are 2 very different people. The objections that you've overcome for the second person, way more in depth than the first person, right? The first person, they don't even know if the product's right for them, right? They don't even know if they have the problem that your product solves, right? The second person, they know, hey, I have this problem, I need a solution for it. This solution sounds really interesting. They might still have a few lingering objections, right? Maybe it's like, hey, there's a lot of competitors out there. What makes this unique from the competitors, right? Does it have any doctors that have, or celebrities or authority figures that have endorsed it, CNET? Does it have, great unboxing videos in UGC, things like that? And so retargeting really needs to be looked at as a journey instead of just a one size fits all. Hey, anybody that triggers a custom audience or enters a custom audience, we're going to hit them with the same testimonial ad. You're not going to get results that way, right? You might get some results. That is the challenging thing sometimes with success, is that if you start doing better than you've ever done before, you get this false sense of confidence that you're doing everything right. It's like, hey, I'm making more money today than I've ever made before, so why would I change things up? But what you don't see is that you could be making a lot more money, right? Like, just like you didn't see it a few months ago when you weren't making, at that point you thought you were making as much money as possible, but you've grown from there because you've tried new things. And so success can be a dangerous problem for a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs, just because of that. It gives them a false sense of confidence, right? And so, yeah, I think breaking up, people that have just viewed 25% of a video, people that have engaged with your pages, people that have visited any page on your website, people that have visited key pages on your website, people that have spent the most time on your website, people that have added to the cart, people that initiate checkout, people that have bought more than once, people that have bought and spent 2 times more than the average order value, right? There are so many segments, and the message for each one of those segments needs to be different, right? And not only that, it's not just about the objection blocking, it's also about personalization, right? So maybe you have, 2 people that are both at the abandoned cart phase, but one's a man, one's a woman, right? And I don't know what product we're talking about here, but your product could be used very differently for a man or a woman, right? Like, let's say you're selling a female product. Let's say you're selling like a Dyson hair dryer, really expensive, badass hair dryer, right? And you have men that have abandoned the cart, right? Chances are that guy is probably buying as a gift for his wife, for his daughter, for somebody, right? So the retargeting ads should be focused. Maybe you should have a video of one of your women customers opening a present and getting it, and then the surprise and happiness on her face. That's a powerful ad for a guy thinking, hey, what's the perfect gift to get my wife for Christmas? Whereas for the woman, it should be about, the product, the benefits, the features, right? Other women that she can relate with. So something as simple as that could dramatically increase your conversion rates just by segmenting by gender, right? And then you have age, you have placement, you have location. There's so many other variables that you can filter by at each step. So it's funnel steps, and then it's also personalization within each funnel step.
So where do you think in terms of retargeting, like where do you stop, and then what's the long-term vision, right? Because obviously you can't build out all of these campaigns like overnight. So where do you start, and then like where do you kind of transition and go to, right? If you got to
I
start
mean,
somewhere, how would you break
yeah, I
up the
mean,
campaign?
you should work backwards. Like, this is what I tell a lot of people, a lot of students, is instead of starting with cold traffic, right? Because unless you are a brand new store that opened its doors today, right, the chances are that you already have some traffic coming to your store. You already have some people adding to the cart, you have people visiting, people engaging with your Facebook page, right? Those people you should focus on converting first, right? Before you send more people into the ecosystem, you should perfect your ability to convert those people. Otherwise, you're just burning cash, sending more people into a machine that's not really built. So if you start from the bottom of the funnel and work your way up to the top of the funnel, by the time you turn on the faucet and send people into it, you're going to have a machine that's going to dramatically increase your ROAS, your ROI on that funnel, right? And so that's the way I look at it is, hey, let's start at the end, let's work our way to the front. Now, you're obviously not going to have every little detail and nuance from day one. You're going to build and build and build on it, but you need to have the core blocks there, right? You need to have the post-purchase retargeting. You need to have the abandoned cart retargeting. You need to have the, lead retargeting. You need to have the page view retargeting, right? Some core buckets need to be in place before really turning on cold traffic. And last thing I'll say there is, this is a crazy question that I still get a lot, is like, when should I start retargeting, right? People have this idea that I need to be spending a certain amount of money or have a certain number of people in my audience before I can retarget. Like, I don't care whether you've sent one person or a million people. That's still one person who you've spent money to send somewhere without fully optimizing the follow-up, right? And in my view, I don't care whether it's one or a million, you should have something in place. Facebook is not going to spend, unless you're running impression-based campaigns where you're just paying for impressions, Facebook's not going to spend your whole budget every day on a small audience, right? So a lot of the times your audience can grow into your budget without needing to increase your budget to start. And then you can always increase budgets as you really start to scale and get larger audiences. But even if you start at, 10, $20 a day for your retargeting campaigns and you only have a few people in it, Facebook might only spend, 50 cents, a dollar each day, but at least it's there so you can get those sales.
100%. It's crazy, like how often I see, I'm not a big Facebook ads guy, right? Like we run some Facebook ads, but not a ton. And it's crazy for me how many I see that like we get a customer that comes to us or a prospect and like, we want to scale our Facebook ads, and they're not running any retargeting or doing
Yep.
like anything to maximize customer value and everything else. And so I love what you said, like work backwards, right? And start there, make the most of every customer so that you can, so that you can afford to spend more than everybody else on ads, and you have that budget for testing and you're not running on razor thin margins. So absolutely fantastic. When it comes to, I guess, just diving into one of those, when it comes to like abandoned cart retargeting, I see some people going right for the money, like no reminder, no like, hey, you forgot, just immediate deep discount. What are your thoughts on kind of that sequence or that progression, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever works for you works for you, right? So there are certain products, certain businesses, certain times of year where it makes sense to bypass a lot of the nurturing and the, you know, the traditional things that I would recommend doing, like this time of year, right? Going to Q4, people just want to buy stuff, right? And so the need to nurture and have communications and conversations with prospects and all that stuff is less important during November and December than it is the rest of the year. You should be doing that stuff now, right? So this is the time to be doing it. So come November, December, you can just turn on the floodgates with retargeting and bring those people in with all your deals and specials and stuff. But most of the year, I think people forget that the reason people don't buy is not the same for everybody, right? And so if you're a business owner or a marketer, you have this assumption that everybody thinks the same way you do, right? Like, this is why I wouldn't buy at this point. Therefore, everyone must be thinking the same thing. The reality is that people are different. They have different points of their life. They have different needs, different challenges, different problems, and different circumstances. And so the reason they didn't complete the next action can be very different than the one you assumed. And so for abandoned cart retargeting, for example, most people assume it's because of the price. That's their go-to thing. Hey, they didn't buy, but they added to the cart, so they must have been really, really eager to buy. So I need him with a giant discount, and they'll come back and buy. There are so many reasons why somebody would do that, right? There are people like my wife who just love to window shop. She'll be on and she'll be adding stuff to her cart because maybe the holidays are coming up, gift ideas and stuff like that. Doesn't mean she doesn't want to pay full price. Doesn't even mean that she doesn't want somebody to get it for a gift and pay full price. But it's not, that's not the objection that's going to get her over the hump, right? You hit her with the discount things, it's not going to matter because she wasn't doing that to shop now anyway. You also have people that are just busy, right? So like for us, every day, every minute, every day, I'm preoccupied with my business and my stores and everything we have. So that's all I'm thinking about, right? And we like to think that our customers must be thinking the same thing, right? When they come to our store, they must be so enthralled and so they care so much about our business that the reason they left is because of the price. But the reason they might have left is they had something to do, right? Like you're a parent and you're on store X at 2:30 in the afternoon and you're like, oh crap, the kids just got out of school, I got to run, right? They left to go pick the kids up. Doesn't mean they didn't want to pay full price, right? So there's a lot of things that can happen that can lead to somebody abandoning the cart that again have nothing to do with price. And so something as simple as a reminder, just that we saved your cart, can drive a lot of full price sales. It makes no sense to dilute your margins unnecessarily, right? You can always hit them 2 days later with a discount, right? But at least give them a chance to come back and buy full price.
One of the campaigns that you talked about that I really loved was the idea of a thank you video post purchase. Can you talk about kind of what you do with those and why and how they work for you?
Yeah, I mean, the simple reason why is, you look at a great email open rate nowadays, you're talking, you know, purchase open rates, not regular open rates, maybe 30, 40%, maybe 50%, right? So, at scale, if you have, 1,000 customers that have bought your product, you're talking about, 700 to 500 of those customers not seeing any type of appreciation from you, right? They're not seeing a thank you. They're not seeing anything, right? So for them, they just feel like they gave you money, they're ghosted, right? That's not a good feeling, right? You want to feel appreciated. And so the thank you video ad, it's really about maximizing reach and maximizing the likelihood that every person who bought is going to see that thank you message from you, right? Um, and it just stands out, right? Again, we're dealing with a unprecedented time in history where it is so easy to start a business. It's never been easier to start a business. You can basically buy a domain name, start on Shopify, get a drop shipping account, and you can start selling stuff today in an hour, right? Um, and so you need to be able to stand out. You need to be able to be noticed in the crowd. And so anything you can do, especially things that don't cost you a lot, you should be doing. So the thank you video ad, you could put a $2 to $5 a day budget on that, right? Just run video view ads, and you're going to reach every one of your customers. Run it for 2 to 3 days post purchase, and they're going to notice, right? And especially if it's the founder of the company, again, video, seeing the actual owner of the company talking to you on your phone, way more impactful than a text email that feels very cookie cutter, very generic, doesn't have personality, right? When you see a video from a company, it says these people care about me, right? Now, I'm sure the same video for everybody, people know that, but it still says more about them than any other company because most companies aren't doing that. So they're benchmarking you against everybody else.
Yeah, that's awesome. I thought it was really a fantastic idea. And then you were like, oh, and yeah, by the way, like every one of these has a great ROAS. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a second, what? Like people buy from the thank you video?
it sounds crazy to at first to think about that because it's not optimized for purchases. But at the end of the day, people respond well to positive experiences, right? Like a positive experience has a tangible impact on your business. And that's why many of the biggest brands in the world invest so much into the customer experience, right? That's why like Zappos has written the Bible for it. Like Zappos wasn't revolutionary from a product standpoint. They just created a revolutionary model on how they communicate with customers. And customer experience can make or break your business, right? Like I had a terrible customer experience last week with UPS. They shipped our iPhones to a wrong address, or Verizon had an old address and UPS wouldn't change. They couldn't change it. They said, hey, this other company handles the actual shipping, but we don't have their phone number. We have no way of connecting you with them. And I speak with a manager. I got the phone tag game, and basically the person I spoke to last like cursed me off on the phone. And it's like I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I spread as much bad word of mouth about UPS as possible. Now, for a company like UPS, I'm going to have no impact on their bottom line, right? But enough people start getting pissed off, it can have an impact. Like, I mean, Facebook and a lot of big tech, they're seeing that firsthand, right? They're pissing off a lot of people. Tens of millions of people, both on the user side and the customer side. And that does start to have an impact on your business. No matter how big you are, you lose trust in customers, you have a bad reputation, that can destroy a business. The biggest companies in the world that went down.
Yeah, I love that idea. Such an outside of the box kind of campaign for retargeting, and customer experience, I think is super important. I was at a workshop 2 weeks ago with Roland Fraser from
Yep.
Digital Marketer, right?
Yeah,
And he's
Roland's
talking
great.
about
Yeah.
building companies and scaling and exiting companies. And he said that one of the biggest factors that everybody's looking at now is NPS as a metric, and
Yeah.
a metric before they start getting into all the due diligence. It's just like, what's the NPS? Are the customers happy? Because I don't care about the books and I don't care about everything else. If the NPS is bad, even if the books look good, in 6 months, 12 months is going to be a very different scenario.
Yeah. You can have, you can have 20, $50 million in annual revenue, but if it's all first time buyers and you buy the company, you're buying a company that's, pretty much worthless, right? If they're going to do $0 next year because nobody's buying again, now that's an extreme example, but yeah, that's why, I mean, net promoter score and stuff is really important. People look at it because it is a good indicator on repeat purchase rate and retention and those numbers.
100%. Good stuff. So one of the other things that I find a lot of my customers as agency owners and marketing people that work for different businesses is that they're always wanting to know like what the trick is today, right? What's the little tweak that I can make today? And I try to push against that. Instead, I try to talk to them about fundamentals, right? And learning the fundamentals, because that's going to get you much further than the little trick that's working right now. And you talked about this earlier with always split testing and always testing things so that when something does change, you know where to go next. What do you think in terms of today? What do you think the fundamentals are with Facebook that somebody has to learn? If it's like you're going to learn 5 things or 4 things, like this is what you got to learn in order to survive. And the count doesn't matter, but what are those
Yeah,
top things that fundamental
yeah. I mean,
wise they got to learn?
ironically, a lot of them don't have to do with Facebook specifically. I think offer, brand, messaging, and creative are the 4 things that every business needs to have to be successful, in general, but also on Facebook, right? Um, if you don't have a offer that people resonate with that converts, if you don't have an actual brand that people can relate to, that people can feel like they're part of, that differentiates you from the crowd, if you don't have a message that again people can rally behind, that people can resonate with, if you don't have creative that actually stops people in the feed, grabs their attention, retains their attention, pulls them in, nothing else matters, right? I could tell you, hey, you need to learn how to master CBO, and you need to learn cost cap bidding, and you need to learn how to properly scale and set up automation rules and all those things. And yeah, those things are important. But what I found is there are a lot of examples of companies that have none of that knowledge, and they're terrible at that, but have the 4 things I just talked about that are worth tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. There are not many companies that don't have those 4 things, but have the mastery of the platform that are worth that. And I think that's telling, right? And again, we see that a lot when we're on the consulting side, where companies come to work with us, and we see a lot of really innovative product companies that are growing very fast, and their ad accounts are a mess. They're not doing anything. Like a lot of these companies, some of them are just running like a single campaign with like one ads, one audience, a lookalike, and a video they produce. But it's like an incredible video. Their website's incredible, their offer's amazing, and they're just crushing it. And then again, on the flip side, we see companies that just have a terrible offer. They have no brand. It's a generic Shopify store with a generic general store, and they're tanking because again, what I look at is if you're trying to compete and just be a product, right? You're just trying to pick a product from China or somewhere and sell it, and you're just trying to compete on price or value or whatever it might be. At that point, you are basically competing against Amazon, and you will never beat Amazon. That is the reality. Nobody will ever beat Amazon, ever. The only person that could beat Amazon is the US government. That is the only player that'll ever decrown Amazon when it comes to that, right? They just have too much money, too many resources. They have too much, infrastructure. And so what that means is you need to think about, okay, if I can't compete on price and I can't just throw a product up there that everyone else is selling and expect to make money, I need to differentiate on brand and message and my hook and entertainment and engagement. And that's why you look at companies like Purple and Casper and William Painter and all these brands that have just exploded. None of them are selling revolutionary products, right? Like there aren't many kind of B2C e-com brands that I see nowadays that are truly revolutionary, right? Like that invented the iPod, right? The iPhone, like Apple, and they revolutionized product categories. A lot are selling products, razors, mattresses, soap, cosmetics. They're selling products in very crowded marketplaces that nobody in the right mind would want to enter, but they're exploding in growth because they found a segment of the audience that nobody was speaking to, right? And they've created a brand, a message, an identity, a creative for that audience. And that's the only audience they speak to, right? Everyone else is trying to, like I see a lot of these general stores, people just selling products, they're trying to get everybody. Their audience is every man, woman, and child on the planet. And that can't be your audience, right? You can build a massive, massive company with 1 million customers, with a few 100,000 customers. If the repeat customers on continuity, you can build a very, very large company. So I would rather create a company that has, 1 million customers, but they're very, very focused and have a great brand, than a company trying to go after, 1 billion customers that never gets any traction because my message is diluted. There's actually no message, right? So companies like Peloton, they've sold 400,000 bikes, right? They're a $4 billion company. They've sold 400 to 500,000 bikes. That's not they haven't sold millions, they haven't sold tens of millions of customers. They've sold to about 500,000 people. They have 1 million members in their community. $4 billion company. And they entered a market that nobody would enter, the treadmill market, the elliptical bike market. But they said, hey, we're going to create a really cool brand, a brand for millennials, people that love their iPhones, their gadgets. It's going to be super premium. It's going to be very expensive, right? So it's going to be for upper income, upper middle income. We're going to get, a big display, touchscreen. We're going to make it all fancy and have all kinds of cool tech stuff, live content, live coaching. And they built a brand for the demographic that resonated with that. And all their creative, all their copy, all their messaging, their offer is for that demo. Anybody outside that demo, they're not talking to. And they built a very, very loyal tribe that way.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's awesome. That nailed my question. That's all fundamentals that everybody should be thinking about. And as you said, all too many people aren't even having that conversation in their head ever. They haven't taken the time to slow down and to think through those things. And then their entire business reflects that as well, oftentimes in like a general store type of scenario, like you said. Well said. All right, man. So I want to be super respectful of your time. We are hitting the top of the hour here. So I want to wrap this thing up by asking one question that gets asked on podcasts a lot, but I take a little slight tilt with it. So instead of asking you to recommend your 3 favorite books, I always ask at the end of podcasts, like, what's the one book where if you look at your business, you can say, this has had the biggest impact on my business? Not like this was a great book and there's a bunch of theory that I liked and I remember that, but when you look at your business, like, what's the 1 or 2 books that's made the biggest actual impact?
Yeah. So, I looked at this question when you sent it over, and the answer I give you may not like, but it's going to be the answer. So what I would say is I honestly can't pick. There's not a single book, because I like to read about so many different things. Like, I think a lot of people pick like a very specific business book, right? A Jim Collins book or something like that, Harvard Business Review type book. And but then I love history. D-Day is one of my favorite books about Normandy. Like, I'm a big history buff, a big World War II buff. So instead, I would say, like, from an author perspective, I think one author has probably hasn't driven my business world, but has had probably the greatest impact on the way I think about things, and that's Malcolm Gladwell. I think, like, every book Malcolm Gladwell puts out, and his newest one just came out, Talking to Strangers, which I read in like 2 days. It was one of his best. I absolutely loved it. Are just so incredibly well written and entertaining, right? So from Tipping Point all the way to Talking to Strangers, like, he's able to educate through entertainment, right? So he has a clear thesis through each of his books, and like Talking to Strangers is all about why us as humans, despite we're all humans, so terrible at talking to people we don't know, essentially, right? Judging people we don't know. It talks about, Bernie Madoff. It talks about Amanda Knox. It talks about all these big events that have happened where it showcases that. But it teaches that central thesis through really engaging stories. And I think from a marketing perspective, the way we've grown our agency, being able to entertain and engage is like the most effective way to sell, right? If you can get somebody's attention and you can suck them in and get them hooked, you can really sell, right? And so for Malcolm Gladwell, it's like him selling his thesis, his viewpoint. And I think that's something we've done with a lot of our businesses. So yeah, I would say from an author perspective, his books have probably entertained, engaged, and educated me the most throughout my career.
Love it. Yeah, I definitely got a lot of value out of Tipping Point, and I haven't read Talking to Strangers, so definitely will check that out. Just want to say thank you for coming on. This has been great. I know that a bunch of the takeaways I left that event with we'll be able to give our audience, and so that was the goal. You did a great job delivering on that. I just want to say thank you. We'll make sure to link you up in Unicorn Innovations in the chat. Is there anywhere else, man, that we should link up for you?
Sure. Yeah, I think unicorninnovations.com is a good place to start. That is pretty much everything we do, and then just maxwellfin.com. So between those 2 sites, that has everything. Instead of giving you like 30 links, those 2 are good.
Awesome, man. Fantastic. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing with us. You definitely shared a ton, and I know my audience is going to love this. So thanks so much, Max.
Of course, anytime, Joe. Talk soon.
See you guys.